Hi guys, this is Sandy with Sandy Cogdell Designs, and today I'm doing something a little bit different. It's definitely out of my comfort zone, but it's been actually pretty darn fun. For the last few months, I have been watching Craft Roulette online, and every time they finish or select their parameters, I always kind of think in my head, what do I have in my stash that I could use to create a card using those parameters? I have yet to make a card. However, today I have decided I would jump in and do one. So this is going to be my first submission. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. You can also subscribe to my channel or follow me on Instagram at Sandy Cogdell Designs or on my blog www.sandycogdelldesigns.com. All right, let's get started. Everything on this card, except for the cardstock and the ink, has been created with products from Trinity Stamps. They recently had a new release, kind of with an outer space theme, and I have been having so much fun with it. It's just so creative, and it seems to fit my card making style really well. So we're going to start off with the Blast Off die set. I've got my rocket ship cut out of a piece of, it's a very, very light gray. And I'm going to take some Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink, dust up my edges. I am going to concentrate a little bit more color at the very bottom where I think they're called thrusters, but I'm not a rocket scientist or builder. But I'm going to concentrate a little bit more color under there because that one grate fits over it and I want to have a nice color behind those openings. I'm also going to do a little bit of ink blending around that porthole to also give it a little bit of dimension. I already have my little grate cut out of blue cardstock and I'm just going to apply it to the bottom of that rocket ship. When I cut this out, I cut the cardstock out with a little bit of adhesive tape on the back. That way I don't have to glue. Next, I'm going to dust up the edges of my yellow cardstock on my spaceship with a little bit of carved pumpkin distress oxide ink. After touching up my other little piece of flame, the orange one, with some fired brick distress oxide, I'm going to go ahead and attach that to the bottom of the spaceship. I've got the braces for the rocket and the tip for the rocket out of some silver metallic cardstock, and I'm just going to apply those to the rocket ship also. The astronaut is also cut from the light gray cardstock, and just like the rocket ship, I have dusted up the edges with a little bit of Hickory Smoke Distress Oxide ink, and I'll start assembling him. I've cut his face shield from a piece of very dark gray cardstock. I touched up those edges with a little bit of black soot distress oxide ink, and then for the little highlight on his helmet, that is just cut from a stark white cardstock. When possible, I always try to apply double-sided adhesive tape to the back of my cardstock before I cut out these smaller die cut pieces. It makes it so much easier to adhere them to the card rather than trying to hold on to that little piece with your tweezers and then get glue on it and not too much glue and then the glue squishes out. So this is a much easier way to get those small pieces adhered to our little die sets. For this one, I have taken, it's kind of a really bright turquoise cardstock, and cut out my little boots and gloves. And then I'm just taking a bit of chipped sapphire distress oxide ink and dusting up those edges to help give them some dimension. All right, now that we have our rocket ship and our rocket man created, it is time to move on to the card. So one of the parameters of this card is to make it an A7. To be honest, I do A7 cards very, very rarely. It's just a lot of area to cover. However, with this card, I definitely needed absolutely every bit of that area. For the ground or the moon surface, I am using the Crater Layers Layering Stencil and Coordinating Die set. I have used this on a number of cards so far, and it is by far one of my favorite stencil and die sets. I just think it's so versatile. Anyway, we're going to cut out that ground piece from yellow cardstock. Then I'm going to layer my stencil on top, and with some carved pumpkin distress oxide ink, I'm going to layer in those craters and crevices. All of my planets have been cut from scrap cardstock using the Flight Deck die set. And then I've just gone back in and just dusted up those edges. So my orangish color, I'm using Fired Brick. The purple, I use Villainous Potion. The turquoise blue, I used chipped sapphire. The green, I used Rustic Wilderness. And I think that's all of them. Anyway, another one of the parameters of this was Cinco, so I had to have 5 of something. So this particular die set worked just perfectly. I had just enough planets to finish up this card. I'm going to start working on the actual background of my card. So I've got a piece of cardstock cut at 5 by 7. I'm going to use Mermaid Lagoon, Salty Ocean, and Chipped Sapphire Distressed Oxide inks to blend in my sky. As I was working on it, I really wanted to use the new letterpress plate that Trinity Stamps has out. It's called Starfield. And this was just a little bit too big, so I thought, well, maybe if I cut down this background to 6.5 by 4.5, I would be able to squeeze in that letterpress or the glitter plate as long as I had a border, which I did because I just inked up that moon. So I'm not going to show it on video just because my foiling machine is in a totally separate part of the room, as is my die cut machine. So I did foil this with some Spellbinder holographic, I think it's called dots. And it just turned out so pretty. I'm really glad I went ahead and found a way to make that work. Isn't that background just stunning? I absolutely love it. I did take a little bit of black soot Distress Oxide ink and I went around the edges. I wanted to make sure that I kind of blended in or kind of gave the illusion of it being a nighttime or outer space sky. So this is a really nice way to kind of create that look. Plus I also knew that I was going to be mounting that on a piece of 5 by 7 black cardstock and it would blend in just perfectly. As I was getting ready to lay out my planets and all my little pieces, I found that with that rocket ship, with that porthole being open, it was making it really difficult and really limiting me on where I could put the rocket ship. So I went ahead and just kind of, vaguely traced out the shape of the rocket ship and just cut out a piece of white cardstock to glue behind so that I could get that porthole and the frame glued on, and then I could move that rocket ship around freely on my card, and I didn't have to worry about getting it in the exact right placement, if that makes any sense at all. Another one of the parameters of this card was lyrics, so that is why I chose Rocket Man. So anyway, once I get my planets and my ship and my little guy all kind of in an area that looks like it's going to work out, I need to start working on my sentiment. So I'm just trying to find a place where that's going to fit in well. For my sentiment, I'm using the Graham Cracker Alphabet die cut set with some dark orange or medium orange cardstock. I have definitely applied some double-sided adhesive. I think Trinity Stamps brand is Rip and Stick, I think. Anyway, I applied it to the back of my cardstock just because these letters are so thin and fragile that it is very difficult to use glue to glue them down. So I've got my ruler out and I'm just going to place my sentiment on my card, and then it's just about time to finish everything up. I have glued all of my little planets directly to the background of my card. I am then going to take it, at least that piece, and glue it on a 5 by 7 inch piece of cardstock. I pretty much always frame out my cards with some type of border. I just think it just gives it a nice finished feel. And as my friend Carrie always says, the love is in the details. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. I'm going to use some foam dots to pop up my rocket ship and my little rocket man, just to give my card a little bit of dimension. I like to do that also on most of my cards. It just adds another nice little finishing touch. And we are just about done making this card. So the parameters of this week's episode was a 7 card, which we did. Oh, for the colors, it was Wreath. Well, I don't do very many wreaths, but when I do a wreath, it's a Halloween wreath. So my wreath colors are always very bold and very bright. So those are my wreath colors for this card. The other one was Lyrics, so I think I got that with Rocket Man. And the other one was Cinco, which I use 5 planets. So I think I pretty much nailed it. Anyway, I am absolutely in love with this card. I am glad I participated, and I'm sure I will be participating in more of them in the future. Thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me. I hope you have an amazing day. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Hit subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos, and you can follow me on Instagram or my blog. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.